Hello and welcome back to yet another Geek Show Spotlight, where that's America's butt. I'm your host, Alex Ecker.
I'm your host, Dalton Munnell, and Alex, you're allowed to swear on the internet.
I'm your host, Josh Kieran.
dude.
Dalton, you stole my line.
Yeah, but that was the movie, guys.
Look, guys, if
we're
Captain
here.
America can say ass, everyone can say ass.
Oh, he did say ass. That's right.
He
That's
did have-
America's ass, everyone.
He has had some great character growth since Age of Ultron, hasn't he?
Right? Yeah.
Just dropping A-bombs out there all willy-nilly. That's
Which,
a weird thing to say about a war hero. I meant the word ass.
I mean, he was in
Remind
World
me
War II.
Dalton, remind me about Age of Ultron a little later in this episode.
I was just referencing the
Language.
the joke about language.
Oh, I know, but there's something I wanted to bring up.
He's embraced language pretty well. He drops a bitch. That felt pretty good.
I said, bitch.
Of all the characters that could get one, I think he deserved it most.
Oh, man. Oh, my God. Endgame, guys.
Oh, if you can't tell by the length of this episode, which I'm assuming right now is really long, this is a full spoiler discussion. But do we want to do like 3 minutes without spoilers, just to say how we feel before kicking people out?
Sure.
Okay. It was really good.
So I'm going to go all aboard the hyperbole train and say that even though I have nitpicks and criticisms, this was so good and satisfying that I almost think they should stop it.
You mean just end the cinematic universe and be done with it? Like, go out on a high note?
Done. Yeah, absolutely. I can't actually say that because of all the great heroes that only have one movie so far and the, endless material to pull from in the Marvel comics that I would love to see. But they're never going to do anything again that is this satisfying of an ending.
Possibly, yeah. It was a phenomenal movie. It had a roller coaster of emotion. I was going into this movie worried that it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, and I was completely blown away. It's just phenomenal work. So if you think that you're overhyping or underhyping the movie, either way you're wrong.
I saw it before
see
you
it.
two, and I said to you guys, I wasn't ready for this. If you guys are worried you have your expectations too high, you don't. Was I right in
that's right, you
saying
did.
that?
Yeah, you did say
Yes.
that on our Discord.
And was
Yeah,
I
you
right about
certainly-
that?
You were
Yes.
absolutely right.
Oh goodness, guys. Yeah, this I'd have to rate this an 11 out of 10 on go see this damn movie before it leaves theaters, and hopefully this episode will still be relevant.
Well, I am going to say
leaves
that
theaters.
I don't think this clocks in as my number one MCU movie. I think that throne is always going to be maintained by Winter Soldier. I don't know. I have to see it
Okay,
again,
Josh.
but this might actually end up being number two.
Josh, okay, maybe I do have the wrong opinion after seeing Endgame. That's a callback.
There are callbacks to like everything here, and it's nuts. And that's part of it being so satisfying, is that
Yes.
all the callbacks and references, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't just feel like, oh, here's, the best of, here's a pat on our own back. It all feels earned. There is fan service all over the place, and I'm like, you know what? You earned that, Marvel. And they do it all in such a way that, it's just satisfying. It's just the most satisfying ending. Not that it's really an ending, but
It is
it's the end
an
of
ending.
something. And it's the most satisfying ending I could think of. Like, Game of Thrones is not going to end this satisfyingly. Star Wars will not end this satisfyingly.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, do you guys think we're ready to go into spoiler areas?
Absolutely.
We are now in the spoiler zone.
So get out of here and go see that movie before you continue this. All right. I think the
they're gone.
non-watchers, they're gone. I think they're done.
All right, so
Oh my God.
let's first talk about how this
Died,
movie is.
man.
This movie is
Right?
truly the story of how a lone rat saved the universe.
That rat is truly a hero.
I really
There was a
want
1 in 14
Storage
million
Unit
some
Rat
chance.
to have a solo movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. He is clearly the mightiest Avenger, and I will defend him until I die.
It was a 1 in 14 million chance, and he did it.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange said so. Doctor Strange watched this movie 14 million times and he said, "It's all on this rat," and he did it. So thanks for listening, and
Thank you, Rat Boy. You will live on in our hearts forever.
okay, so
Master
what did you
Squeak.
guys think the plot was going to be?
I did not think it was going to be about time travel. I'm not going to lie. So here's my spiel. I never watch trailers for movies I know I'm going to see. So I went into Endgame having not watched a single trailer for it. I did
don't
not think
the
it was going to
trailers
be
told
about
us
time
this.
travel. I thought it was mostly just going to be about rallying whoever was left and going on a last-ditch effort to like get the stones back from Thanos and undo the snap, you know, without screwing with time.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, when I found out pretty early on that the movie was going to be about time travel, before they actually did it, I had a little pit in my stomach like, oh boy, I hope they don't screw this up.
It was going to be so easy to screw up, and we'll definitely get there.
Yeah. You know, when they started talking about the like right before the time travel stuff, right when Thor aims for the head, I thought to myself, oh shit, how are they going to do this entire 3-hour movie when 10 minutes in they just killed the main villain?
I was positive that there was some sort of reality stone bullshittery going on at the time, and that they
Yeah,
were
so
just
did I.
fighting
I
an
thought he was
illusion
just,
of Thanos,
you know-
or he was messing with them somehow.
Oh,
But
you're
then-
right. We did have that once already.
Right.
Right. And then
Guys, have
you
we
know,
watched Thanos die 3 times?
Yes, we have. Even if one of them
And
was a
2 of them were
holographic
real?
recording of the first time.
Interesting. So
Oh,
the only
goodness,
person
wow.
competing to die as many times is Vision with his record of 2.
Yeah. Oh man.
So I did know going into this that time travel was involved, but I don't think the trailers showed that. I think I unfortunately saw that in some behind the scenes photos from before Infinity War even came out.
Oh, okay.
There were images of Paul Rudd in costume on what was clearly the set of 2012 Avengers. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
wasn't a surprise. But what was a surprise to me was that it wasn't the time stone.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So you would think, oh, time travel's helpful here, and they do have a time travel device, but nope, it wasn't that. Tony had to actually solve time travel.
It
Right.
apparently wasn't very hard because he seemed to do it in about an evening.
Yeah. And you know, can I segue off that real quick?
No,
With Dalton? Can you not
can you just be cool? Just be cool for a second.
yeah, can you just be like not a piece of shit? That'd be fine.
Fine.
All right, cool. No, the whole scene when he figured it out, and you could like Robert Downey Jr.'s acting in that moment where he was conflicted of, you know, being so adamant on not losing what he already had. You know what I mean? Like his second chance of having the family that he, you know, clearly changed his entire life to have. You know, in the 5-year span between Thanos's beheading and when we see him again and the Avengers are trying to recruit him again.
It was a good reason for being distracted from solving time travel for the last 5 years.
Yeah, it really was. But holy shit, like that moment, like it was, I don't know, there was something really special about, you know, Robert Downey Jr. not being, you know, the I'm a millionaire and I'm going to be a dick about it style. You know, like even like in the Infinity War movie, he still had that sort of air about him, you know, with his like PTSD. Like
It's been a slow change for him, but
Yes.
it's visible in every movie. You see him
Right.
become more mature and responsible every time, and his
Yeah.
arc definitely, you know, finishes here.
yeah, it certainly does, in a very, very heartbreaking way.
Yeah. So I went into Infinity War anticipating that Cap would die in one of these movies and Tony would die in the other. And then they gave us the fake out in Infinity War. And at that point, I thought, there's no way they're actually going to kill him now. They gave us a fake out. Don't fake us out and then really do it later. But also at the beginning of that movie, he talks about wanting a kid and wanting to get married and whatever. And at that point,
Yeah.
I realized I don't want to see Tony die. I want to see him just stop and be happy and chill. And then I watched this movie and I'm like, oh, he has his kid and his family and he's totally not going to chill. He's still got to do what an Iron Man got to do. And okay, I guess that was the right thing.
Right. You know, and it was also kind of nice to see like Hawkeye, who was now technically Ronin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, although I don't think they ever actually call him by that name in the movie.
Right. It's a definite comic book name, but
the same way Captain America is kind of nomad at this point, but they're never going to say that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
It's more of a like an elbow poking, like, hey, do you realize who he is now? You know,
it's fan service, and it's just
right.
It's using it as a symbol for, the change the characters go through without the silliness of like, I'm changing my name now. Like,
right.
It's just doing it in a less silly way. Still getting the symbolism across.
Yeah. But he finally had good moments. Like, he was seriously an underlooked character in this entire arc. Hawkeye was.
He has good moments in Age of Ultron. They did a lot with him there. But outside of that,
they did.
Yeah.
I really liked the character development with him, even though it was still kind of brief. But like, it gave you a like. They did more show don't tell with his character in the movie when he's in, what was it? I don't know where he was exactly when he was killing all the people.
Japan, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, like, he did say it, but like, you survived the snap, but others didn't. So that's why you deserve to die, is because, it wasn't the pieces of crap like whoever he was going after didn't die.
Okay, I do have a nitpick with this character in this movie.
Okay.
I am thrilled that they did more than usual with his character, and Jeremy Renner did awesome, which is exciting for me because he, of the original 6, not counting Edward Norton, but the original 6 in the Avengers movie, he was kind of my weakest one, where I'm like, I don't know if that was the right person for that character, based on what I know of the comics. And at this point, I've kind of forgotten I ever had that criticism, and now I'm like, yeah, that's Hawkeye, or I guess in this case, yeah, that's Ronin. So I am thrilled with all that, and the Ronin stuff works for me. But after Black Widow finds him, they stop doing anything with that. He's not this new character anymore once they're all back together. So what they accomplished there was, showing that he's been suffering for these 5 years, as they demonstrated pretty well for everyone. But once they're back together, he's just Hawkeye again. And they never talk about this vigilante spree he went on again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it's supposed to be, not as big a deal for him as it would be most characters, because he is a trained assassin to begin with. So maybe his murder spree isn't too much of a stretch for him, I guess. But
he mentions that is the reason why he wants to be the one to sacrifice himself for the Soul Stone to Nat later on in the film. I remember he looks at her and says, "You know what I've done. You know why it has to be me."
Okay. I'll give them that.
That's the only reference to that period of time in his life, I think, in the entire movie after he rejoins the team.
Yeah. And at the same time, this movie does so much in that 3 hours that I don't know what I would suggest to do anything more with it, really.
Yeah.
I think it had just as much time devoted to it as it needed.
So I am calling it a nitpick. I could have used more, but they did so much here that where would I have put it? I really don't know. So how much can I really complain? I
mean, even in the start of my thing, when I was talking about Hawkeye / Ronin, does he go back to being Hawkeye? You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I do wish they did more with Hawkeye, but they did well enough.
I will say that throughout the entire Avengers series, I think that no character has dodged more death flags than Hawkeye.
Yeah.
He was such a goner in Age of Ultron.
He was such a goner in Age of Ultron. They were setting him up to die the whole movie, and they faked him out with Quicksilver right at the end. And then I thought he was going to finally get his death in this movie, but nope.
Yep.
He had to lose the fight that they had to die.
The bros.
So Clint's got to have some serious survivor's guilt at this point. That's what I think.
So
Oh, yeah.
So the scene of him and Black Widow trying to off themselves for the other, it was a really interesting question in my mind, trying to figure out who was going to go. I knew they were both going to try.
Yeah.
But the reason it's an interesting question was that Black Widow has a movie coming and Hawkeye has a TV show coming.
Oh.
And
I was
knew
not aware of
that.
either of these things.
I knew of
Yeah,
both of
me either.
these watching that scene. And so, what up?
Man.
There are, if you haven't seen all the shows Disney Plus has announced, you'll be pretty surprised, especially given, who's alive or dead as of the end of this movie.
Right.
I suspect we're seeing a lot of prequel territory on TV.
Oh, yeah, probably. Although I do have to say, I really did love that scene with the Soul Stone.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. And did anyone else feel like a dumbass for not realizing what was going to happen before they got there? Did it occur to you, oh shit, they're going to the Soul Stone. That means one of them has to die. Did not occur to me.
Oh, no, it absolutely occurred to me, and I was wondering why Nebula didn't tell them that somebody was going to have to die. She kind of did. She said that's where Thanos killed my sister, but she never explained that was the price that he had to pay for the stone.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
So she was being a little too artsy fartsy with her words and not just saying like, yo, one of you gotta die.
Right?
Yeah, it's a pretty crucial element to leave out of the meeting, I think.
I wonder how it would have changed the plan if they knew.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that would have been interesting to see what they would have done.
How do we feel about Black Widow in this movie?
She was a really good part of the movie, but I feel like she could have had a little more screen time, to be fair.
I think that Black Widow is the most consistently underutilized character in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. And not to jump too far ahead, but I actually think it's like a crime that they killed her off and she wasn't around for the big, like, female Marvel heroine, like, power moment at the end of the movie where they all team up and do awesome shit. And the original MCU heroine wasn't there to take part in that awesome moment.
Oh, you're right. That is.
I think it's just a massive disservice to her character.
It's it's
And
a
not to
shame
mention-
because that, her sacrifice seemed in character to me. It makes sense for her story, but a lot of people claim to just not care about Black Widow, and a lot of people are, why are they gonna give her a movie like it's not still gonna make bank? I mean, I know they should have done it a decade ago, but it's still gonna make bank, and I'm still gonna see it opening night. But I do have to say, having been thrilled that movie was finally happening, this kind of hurt my anticipation for it.
I think people were never excited about a movie about her character just because none of the other movies ever really did much with her character, even though they could. I thought she was at her best actually in Winter Soldier, which is again still my favorite MCU movie. But like I think that Black Widow was a great character in that movie, and there were other ways to make movies more in that vein where her skill set would be able to be utilized properly, and we could see that she's a world-class spy or assassin.
Presumably her own movie is going to be most comparable to the Winter Soldier in terms of style and tone, I would think. And I've wanted to see a Black Widow movie definitely since the Winter Soldier. And now it's like, okay, I'll probably still get the cool spy thing, and I still like the character and the actress. But this is the first time that we're going backwards, not in terms of the overall universe. Like, of course, the first Captain America movie was going backwards, and Captain Marvel's movie is going backwards. But in terms of a character, we haven't gone backwards before. And I don't like that we're doing that.
Yeah.
So I will say when Nat died, I was less sad because the character had died and I liked the character, and just more sad that they killed off the character before they were able to realize, I think, her full potential. if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's kind of I totally agree with you there. I'm kind of glad, Dalton, that you mentioned that she is getting her own movie, because to me, Black Widow seems like the most mysterious character of the Avengers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe
what
some
I mean?
people don't want that ruined, but yeah, to me, it just feels like underutilizing her.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's how I felt. Like I wish she would have had a little more time in the movie to have a stronger end of the character,
And I don't like, I did criticize this, and this is more than a nitpick, criticized this on my way out of the movie. The movie is so celebratory over Iron Man and Captain America, and I feel like her death is barely mentioned in the end.
Yeah.
You killed off isn't the right word because of Cap, but you ended 3 of the OG6, and one of them did not get the celebration the other 2 did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. The only thing is, like, Hulk makes a offhanded comment that he tried to bring her back when he snapped, but couldn't.
Yeah,
and that's about it.
Yeah, and segueing off of that, can we talk about the Hulk for a minute?
If we don't have anything left to say about Black Widow,
I think we're probably good on that front for now. Yeah, let's talk about the Hulk dabbing. That's what I want to talk about for the next hour of my life.
Yeah.
That's something I never knew I needed until I saw it.
remind me, is that
super
before
weird.
or after the time skip?
Before. That's in the diner scene, so that's post time skip.
That's when we're introduced to him in the movie.
That's post time skip.
Wait, it was?
Yeah, I said after.
So,
Oh shit, maybe it was.
So now we're accepting that, well, 5 years after Infinity War, so 4 years from now, or 5 years from now. I don't know. In any case, in about a half a decade, they're expecting dabs and Fortnite.
Yeah.
And Fortnite.
Can you put me down?
Yeah. Fortnite product placement doesn't work for me, and dabbing doesn't work for me. I would be fine with it if it. I mean, it's always cringy, but that was the point. So fine.
Yeah.
And I don't really hate going into meme territory if it ends up being time appropriate. Like after Black Panther, people complained about what are those? And I'm like, yeah, well, why can't a character say something cringy? And that movie did take place, I think, 2 years before it released. So what are those was appropriate at the time it took place. So that's fine with me.
Yeah.
But dabbing 5 years from now?
I mean, I think the whole point of that scene was that it was supposed to be comically cringy because Professor Hulk is just awkward as hell, and
Weird.
I love that about him.
So weird.
But I think that was the point.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. He feels like a grandpa and not even just a dad.
Mm-hmm.
He also didn't even dab correctly, so that makes it even better.
Right, exactly. And it's, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Banner and the Hulk finding balance.
So
Is that
I like
is that
it,
weird to
but I
anyone else?
actually really dislike the way that they did it because
which is
I
to
think
not explain it at all.
he did explain it, but I don't know. I feel like
It was so quick.
there is a big arc for Hulk's character, I think, that started in Ragnarok and then continued in Infinity War, and I feel like Banner coming to terms with the fact, coming to terms and accepting the Hulk as part of him is the big payoff for that what is now a 3-movie long character arc, and it happened off screen.
Yeah.
I mean, we were told that because Marvel's not going to make any solo Hulk movies, that those 3 movies were effectively a trilogy for Hulk. And yeah, I feel like it works if we piece it all together, but we skipped right through that pretty well.
We skipped right through the big payoff of all the character development that Banner had been going through between Ragnarok and Infinity War and now Endgame. And I think it's just a really big missed opportunity.
Right. And I don't know, it's I really do like Banner, well, Hulk Banner, I guess we should probably dub him from here, But I do like his character. Although I do miss the classic complete rage change. You know what I mean? Later on in the movie when they time traveled to what was that? Was that Civil War era that they time traveled to?
No, that was Avengers 1.
Oh, okay, that was Avengers 1. Sorry, my bad. And they see him rage, and then he's like, all right, maybe smash a few things. And he goes over to the car and like punches it, kind of like, you know what I mean? Like that was really funny. But at the same time, I do really wish that there was a little more balance between like seeing one complete side versus both at the same time.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you there. I think I liked Thor Ragnarok Hulk more than I like Endgame Hulk Banner.
Right. Yeah. It's super strange to have. I don't know. It felt really awkward. There were some funny moments, like I feel like we could probably segue from Hulk to Thor in this instance, possibly.
Sure.
But when they were driving to New Asgard, I don't know if you caught like when they were driving, the sparks flying off the truck.
Oh yeah, because he's so heavy, and every time they go over a bump, the bed of the truck is hitting off the ground. I liked that.
I truly appreciated the comedy behind
that whole
they made
sequence
the Hulk.
was hysterical and so Taika Waititi. And the best thing about Marvel will always be the way they manage to do scenes like that in the same movies where they do scenes like, most of the other scenes.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not jarring to me one bit.
So moving on to Thor, if that's good. Okay. I have to point something out that's a little personal to me. Well, two things that are personal, and I'll get to the second one here in a minute. I kind of realize how funny it is. Like, I'm noticing like small correlations between like things I've done in my life to Thor.
Like wielding thunder hammers?
Of course. I do that every Wednesday.
Good.
No, I had super long hair and I was actually kind of buff. And then I gave up and got super fat. Stopped giving a shit.
Just a thing I did. I just got fat.
I just got fat.
I do that on Wednesdays.
Yeah, man. I had the super long hair and then had to get it cut. And then I was going to grow my hair back out. And then I realized, man, this shit's too hard to deal with. And then I cut it again. So yeah, I just used to be super buff and then I got fat like Thor.
And then I started playing a bunch of Fortnite.
That I didn't do. I'm not that completely broken yet.
I did love Thor bitching out some kids on what was it, Xbox or PlayStation?
Oh yeah. What was it? Noob Master 69. He really gave it to him.
Oh, I loved that scene.
I was so happy to find out that Korg had survived.
Right?
Survived the destruction of the Asgardian ship.
Oh, it was so funny.
It is a weird coincidence that everyone from Ragnarok who's a character made it, including Meek.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish they had explained how Valkyrie and the others had gotten there. But I guess when Thanos attacked the ship at the start of Infinity War, he only killed half of them, right? So I guess it's just
and then he left the other half floating in half a ship.
Right.
Well, I mean, after Thor got, what was it, Stormbreaker?
Yeah.
Could he have just found the ship or maybe used the Guardians ship to find them?
I mean, it's anything is possible, but you kind of think, you would imagine that they would have devoted a moment of screen time to that.
Not to mention, guys, did you completely forget that he was missing an eye?
I did.
I did.
I noticed the two different colors and went, oh, that's neat.
Yeah. I don't know. Thor's character development was something that really resonated with me personally.
I thought it was great. First of all,
I like that it seems like they realize Ragnarok was kind of treated like a reboot, not in the literal sense. I mean, they didn't, start the canon over and they acknowledged prior events, but a reboot as in a complete change of style and then not treating it like the end of a trilogy. Like, we decided that Cap and Iron Man are done here. But Thor, man, he just got one movie people loved. We're not done with him.
Yeah.
And apparently that might be taking the form of Asgardians of the Galaxy instead of Thor 4. But in any case, I appreciate that we're not done with him when he just got cool.
Right. So that's actually, I think, more thanks to Chris Hemsworth, because I had read some articles that, before Ragnarok was filmed, Hemsworth was basically on record saying that he was tired of the character and was not planning on playing him anymore. And then after Ragnarok, he's enjoyed playing Thor so much that he wants to do more movies. So if Ragnarok hadn't been made the way that it had, we might have been saying goodbye to 4 beloved original Avengers in this movie.
Wow. Moving on with his character development and the time travel with Thor's moral, like the moral of his story is be who you want to be and not what you're meant to be. What the fuck? My phone apparently decided, hey, you're talking to me now. Anyways, which, personal side note here, I seen this on the anniversary of the passing of my mom, and, having him reconnect with his own mother and hearing that from her, I had a real good personal attachment there. And that part of the movie actually almost started making me cry.
I thought that was really powerful too. And I thought that I actually thought there was kind of a throwaway line when he snags Mjolnir out of the alternate timeline right before he leaves. And it's played for laughs, but he screams like, haha, I'm still worthy. And like it's played like a joke, but it's actually a really sad line when you think about it, because I mean, obviously, look at the state that Thor's in. He blamed himself for not being able to defeat Thanos before the snap 5 years ago. And, he's completely let his life go to shit since then. He has no confidence, and he's just completely shaken. And he wanted to see whether or not he was still worthy to be who he was. So the fact that he was able to call his hammer back was like a really big moment for him. And I don't know. I thought that was a lot deeper moment than the movie actually presented it as.
It's almost more like the goal actually was to find out whether he was or not, rather than the goal being to get the hammer.
Right. I think that's what he did. He wanted to, he just wanted to see if he could still pick it up.
Yeah, interesting. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely think that half the reason that Thor did kind of let himself go in between these two movies is that I think they realized that you pretty much have to nerf Thor somehow, because I think that a Thor at his full power with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir would have easily been able to handle Thanos without any Infinity Stones in the final battle.
Yeah.
Considering Thor...
It's great that he's still fat at the end.
Right? Isn't that great?
I like the implication that, he has to work at being a fitness god.
Yeah.
The powers don't just give that to him.
Yeah.
And that still ties in with the moral of his character, be who you want to be and not what you're meant to be. You know what I mean? Like if that's who he thinks he is, and he's, regained his confidence and everything. I was kind of half worried that halfway through the movie, he would have shot some lightning at himself and have been back to what he looked like in Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. But I'm really glad that they kept that all in.
Yeah, right before the final battle, when he kind of just calls a bunch of lightning down onto himself and powered up, I half expected him to be super shredded and back to regular Thor after that. Right. And I was really happy to see that wasn't the case.
I do bet money that we see him on a treadmill in his next movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than the fact that he now has to be in better shape than Peter Quill.
Right. Oh my God.
That works so well.
How do we feel about moving to Captain America?
Well, I was going to say, speaking of wielding Mjolnir.
Yes.
I guess let's finish our original 6. So cap time.
Which is where I was going to ask you to remind me from Ultron, because when they're sitting there all together and he tries having everyone pick up the hammer, Captain makes it move.
Yeah.
No one else could.
Yeah.
And then when he's about to get the knockout blow from Thanos, and he just sees Mjolnir fly across and land in Captain's hand, and he just yells, "I knew it." I was I'm so fucking happy. That moment, I was all right, they're doing some comics here.
It was
that was such a cool moment.
And
oh, I know.
That scene in Age of Ultron did always come off as, well, he knows he can do it, but he's playing it off for Thor's confidence, for his own well-being. And
I wonder if that's the case. Because I was thinking, I've been thinking about that since yesterday when I saw the movie, as to why, what would have changed, how has Captain America changed since Age of Ultron? And I came up with two things. The first is that at the time he was still now I'm going back into Winter Soldier and maybe Civil War. I don't remember whether or not at the time of Age of Ultron if Captain knew that Bucky was the one who killed Tony's parents, and if he was still keeping that from him.
Okay, so a lot of people have also suggested that interpretation, that, you know, he's not actually worthy at that time for that reason, and that's totally valid. I guess, though, the only thing I'm not sure about is that we, the audience, don't know that until several movies later. Or is it just 2 movies? I guess it is just 2 movies later. So they would have known they were going there at the time. So it could be, whether that's the case or not, they definitely at the time wanted us to interpret it as he's worthy and pretending not to be, even if they knew where they were actually going.
And the only other thing that I can think of that was like a major change in his character was that before Endgame, he was completely unwilling to sacrifice anybody to complete a mission. And by the end of Endgame, he realizes that he has to be willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good.
Yeah.
Sure.
So maybe one or both of those things resulted in him finally being able to lift the hammer. I don't really care too much about the specifics because it was fucking awesome.
Right?
It was. It definitely was.
Oh, goodness. And then the joke with the trade-off where he accidentally grabbed Stormbringer instead of Mjolnir.
Thor's like, hey, you take the little one.
You get the smaller one. Trade.
Well, and it's also, just besides how cool it is, it's a good writing thing, because if he didn't have Mjolnir, I would have been skeptical on his going toe-to-toe with Thanos.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I think he started without it, but didn't do quite as well as the other guys. But it was still quite enough where I'm like, no, he shouldn't be keeping up like that. And so once he had Mjolnir, I'm like, okay, now I buy him keeping up.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally lost my train of thought.
Let's appreciate, like I said before, I came into Infinity War expecting that Cap would die in one and Tony would die in the other. I like that they figured out a way to give a character an ending without killing them.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved the way that his story did end.
I've been thinking about this a lot since I saw the movie, and I actually don't like it.
Okay, really?
And I'll tell you why.
If you're getting on a time travel issue, I have this too, and we'll get there, but I don't want to get there yet.
Oh, okay. It's the time travel issue.
Okay. So, well, I guess I was going to say I want to talk about the time travel specifically when we're done going through each character, but I guess this issue is really specific to what happens with Cap there.
Okay, I think it's pretty much unique to just his specific situation. But the more I think about it, the more his ending doesn't sit right with me, because what happened goes against the one rule of time travel that was explicitly laid out in the movie. Like, if Back to the Future is bullshit, and that's fine, but Professor Hulk said himself that anything that you do in a timeline that didn't originally happen results in a divergent timeline. So there really should be no way that Cap was able to go back in time and live out his life and still appear as an old man in the original timeline.
Yeah.
So I thought about this because it was bothering me, and it's unfortunate that it's a continuity issue, because if it weren't, it'd be one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and I'm still going to appreciate it regardless, but I wish it weren't tainted by the continuity issue. But I do have kind of a minor explanation that doesn't fix it, but makes it better. So my interpretation was he goes back, decides to live out this different life of his. And then I just kind of assumed that he didn't stay there and then, it changed this current reality. I want to take it as he actually lived in an alternate timeline, and then once all his loved ones were gone in that timeline, then he chose to return to the original, which doesn't explain why he doesn't come back on the machine.
Right.
Yeah, no, I thought about this and I kind of came to the same conclusion. Like, maybe he just waited until he was really old and then he came back. But how do you show up on the bench in that case?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not quite a fix. It's better. And I think it's possible that that's what they intended to do. But yeah, I'm going to need the writers to give me a really good reason he's on the bench instead of the machine.
Yeah, I mean,
And I don't want to get too
although
nitpicky
it's-
with this because, I mean, nobody deserves a happy ending more than Steve Rogers.
Right.
But
Yeah.
and I did love, that he was able to live a happy life.
That
But
they could effectively
it was-
retire a character without it being a disaster. That things could go
Right.
well for someone as we complete their role in this universe was fantastic.
which was that Chris Evans just in makeup?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Makeup
sure it
and
was.
CG. It was definitely Chris Evans. It took me a minute to be able to tell, but it was.
Yeah, because I was gonna say if it wasn't, God, did they find someone that looked exactly like him?
Yeah,
Oh,
no, they did a
goodness.
really impressive job with that one.
Also, I
Yeah.
want a movie about Captain America returning the Infinity Stones to their rightful places because I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff that we could have
need
seen.
to see that moment
if he
where
was
he
taken.
finds the Red Skull.
Right? That's the main thing I wanted to see. Like, I really want to know how that conversation went.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You know what?
Oh,
This
man.
this brings up something for me. When he time travels and he doesn't come back right when they expect him to, and then they look over and notice someone on a bench. What did you initially think you were going to see there before we realized what was happening?
When they couldn't figure like in that scene before, like right before they showed you the bench, is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
before we saw the bench, we just knew they were looking
And they're
over
like-
at somebody.
I had a feeling because as soon as you hear what's wrong, bring him back, and then I'm like, no, he stayed.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, I
he
already
definitely-
figured that he just chose not to return. As
No,
soon
so-
as they
Yeah,
said
like,
that he
I
was going to
immediately
leave,
figured
and then
that
Hulk
out.
was like, he'll be back in 5 seconds, I knew he wasn't coming back.
Well, guys, so I assumed
Yeah.
that, but I thought when they were looking over at something and, we realized, oh, he did something off mission and something over there is catching their attention. I thought for a moment that he saved Black Widow, that they were going to
Oh.
look over and she was going to be there.
Oh,
Because we don't know how it works if you decide to go back to the Red Skull and just say, here's your stone back. Do you get a soul for that?
Okay, yeah.
We don't have any evidence that you do or you don't. And so I thought maybe he got there, found the Red Skull, had a great interaction we should have saw, and then went, oh, well, I guess I can save Natasha.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't really consider that at all.
Yeah.
yeah, me either.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
'cause,
totally
I
what I
mean-
was thought what was that's what I thought was happening. I don't think that
Yeah.
would have been better than giving Cap
Yeah,
a good ending, but nonetheless.
Everything felt really permanent at that point, though. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't even thinking about Black Widow coming back at all right there.
I mean, it probably wouldn't have been a great idea to
Yeah.
undo deaths that happened in this movie.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that the Red Skull even mentioned that it was basically a no take backsies trade. I don't remember the exact words he used for it. It probably wasn't no take backsies.
I hope it was. I hope that Steve Rogers asked him and he was like, no take backsies.
Now I really need to see that scene.
Oh, geez.
Oh, holy shit. Does that cover the original 6?
Sort of, but hold up, because I'm not off that scene yet.
Oh, okay.
He gives the shield to Sam, which
Yeah.
Can I make a joke now?
Captain Falcon.
Screw you, man.
Yeah, I immediately thought that too, dude. Don't feel bad.
It's been a thing.
I've
in
been
the
waiting to
comics
make
long
that
enough.
joke since the Winter Soldier.
So the Winter Soldier and Falcon have both been Captain America at different points in in the comic books. Bucky was, I believe, after Steve Rogers dies at the end of Civil War, and
Hey.
Sam. Yes,
Can I make another joke?
fine.
This guy's an Avenger. His real name's Clarence.
God damn it. His real name's Sam. All right, that's decent. Jesus. And Sam Wilson, I believe there's a point in the comics where Steve Rogers loses the serum and with it his young age, because the like frozen in time thing isn't a thing in the main universe comics.
Yeah.
Or at least, let me correct that. I think he got frozen sometime in the 40s, but unfrozen sometime in the 60s. So, like, it was a thing, but like many, many, many decades ago and not really relevant today. So anyway, he lost the serum and with it slow aging and became an old man. And I think at that point he gave it to Sam Wilson. I was hoping for it to go to Bucky, but I can't complain because in the universe, I guess Sam makes more sense. It's just that I like Bucky more.
Yeah.
I think it
really
makes
like
sense
Bucky more.
given the characters, just because Bucky is basically gone on record as saying is that he's tired of fighting and he doesn't want to do it anymore. So I think it made more sense for Sam to
valid.
pick up the shield.
Well, that and how
Yeah,
would
that's
the
valid.
public take that?
Right.
So there's major issues, public relations issues with giving that outfit to Bucky of all people.
Yeah, I was aware that both Bucky and Sam had been Captain America in the comics, and I wasn't really sure which direction they'd go. But after thinking about it for just like a few minutes after the movie, I realized that they absolutely made the right call.
No, dude, they were going to give the shield to Frank Castle.
I mean, they should give the shield to Storage Rat, the greatest Avenger.
Greatest Avenger who ever lived. One
Yeah.
in 14 million. Was it 16 million? 14 million? I said the
14
number
million.
earlier.
Oh my God.
Maybe it was wrong.
Guys, Storage Rat was Ratatouille.
I haven't seen Ratatouille.
Oh man,
Josh.
Which is
no!
way
If you're
less
if you're
important
making
than
this
you not
if you're
seeing
making
Lord of
this
the
bridge,
Rings.
then the MCU takes place in the same universe as Kingdom Hearts, and I just don't want to live in that timeline.
No, I'm still mad Marvel's not a part of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Right?
I would have caught up on that series by now if that was a thing. And Star Wars.
I'm so mad.
I mean, they should have put Star
yeah.
Wars in Kingdom Hearts 3 just because the plot of Kingdom Hearts is basically Star Wars with extra steps. So it would have been a perfect fit, but that's neither here nor there.
oh my God.
I think it'd be great if Disney bypassed the obvious ones like Marvel and Star Wars, and they're like, screw it, Simpsons.
Things I never knew I wanted until right now.
Alien.
Oh my God.
Oh, geez. Guys, there is a show coming on Disney Plus called, I believe, Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's those two characters for sure. I don't remember if that's the title.
Okay.
So, what is that? Can't help but notice neither of their names are Captain America in that title. Is that a prequel too? Is every upcoming TV show a prequel? There is a Wanda and
Captain
Vision
Falcon and
series
American
coming.
Winter Soldier.
There's also a Loki series coming out.
And a Loki series.
Oh,
So is it
Shit.
just prequels all the way down?
I don't know if the Loki series is a prequel. I think the Loki series might take place in the alternate timeline that they created where he gets away with the Tesseract.
I've heard that and I don't like it.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
That seems even more wasteful than a prequel. Is doing here's another like an alternate universe story. Also, if that's the route they want to take, that's kind of not necessary because they're already also working on an animated What If series that is What If scenarios based out of the MCU, and it's an animated series and like I said, based out of the MCU. So that's a place where they could do something like What If Loki escaped with the Tesseract. So they already have that opportunity there. Also, I'm not sure that those alternate timelines still exist. You guys watched it more recently than I did, so I could be misremembering, but I got I got to the understanding that once they returned the stolen stones, the split timelines didn't exist anymore, but I could be wrong.
No, you're right.
I'm not sure about that. I've been going back and forth on it.
I wasn't sure if returning the stones meant they prevented the split timeline from actually happening or if it prevented
Canceled it.
time from falling apart completely.
No, the way that it was explained was if the stones were gone, it created another branch on the line. And Banner
She
said,
visualized like I remember the little golden stream coming off of the bigger
Yeah.
stream, but she didn't word it like here's alternate timeline. She said something closer to things falling apart.
it being more consequential than what's the word I'm looking for? Because it felt more like if they were to take the stones, the consequence would be an alternate timeline. But if they brought it back, then it would be gone. That alternate timeline wouldn't have happened.
I think basically what she was saying was that having the stones not exist in that timeline would be like for instance specifically the time stone that the Ancient One was guarding. If that's gone, then Doctor Strange happens and Dormammu devours the Earth, and that timeline is over.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Like the stones themselves have very important roles to play in basically all of the movies, all the really important things that are happening in that universe, and you are creating an alternate universe when you do things in a different timeline. But it was like Banner said, if you return the stones to the exact point where they were taken, then it's like they were never gone. So the consequences to the stones being gone never happen, because as far as that timeline is concerned, they were never gone at all.
Right.
But the only one if you steal the Tesseract from 1970s and you like break it open to get the stone inside, you're returning a stone and not the Tesseract, right? So I mean, I don't remember if you have to break it to get it out or what.
Because wasn't it Loki's staff had the what was that stone?
The Mind Stone.
Mind Stone.
Okay.
Well, yellow stone inside
And then
the blue scepter.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. All right, I see what you mean.
It's confusing because the Tesseract is also a blue cube with a blue stone in it, but yeah, the blue scepter had a yellow stone inside it.
Yeah.
At the time, they didn't know that those were Infinity Stones.
Right.
Those were totally unrelated MacGuffins. Actually, the Tesseract is the cosmic cube in the comics, which is a totally different thing. And they decided after the fact, well, that's an Infinity Stone now.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I want to jump back a little bit because we're spending a lot of time talking about, I guess, the Infinity Stones and things that happened while they were in the Avengers 1 timeline. And I want to circle back to the...
Should we go back to the other Avengers now?
No, I want to talk about the elevator scene with Captain America, the nod to Hydra Cap.
Yeah.
I loved that.
I loved that moment.
I loved it not only because that is a comic book nod,
Right.
but I also loved the subversion where you're like, oh, are we about to get another sick ass elevator fight? Hail Hydra.
Yeah.
Oh no, I knew I didn't know he was going to do the Hail Hydra thing as soon as he got in the elevator, but I really, really hoped that they were going to do that, and I was so happy when he did that. I thought it was such a perfect nod to that arc.
Yeah, it was. I don't know, man. The look on his face even felt so comic booky too when he said it.
I know somebody who went to this game only having seen Infinity War and maybe Black Panther, and I told them before it came out, I think if you just watch Infinity War, I mean, you won't appreciate this as much as most people, but you'll get it. And I think I was right. But man, that was an example of a line where I'm like, okay, you don't really get what happened there. You don't really get to appreciate it like we did.
Right. You only get like the small explanation of Tony saying that, oh, they're Hydra, but we didn't know it yet.
You're sitting in the theater going, why is that funny?
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to hear more about Ant-Man.
I love Ant-Man more every time he's on screen doing anything.
Yeah.
All right, let's finish specifically. I want to add more thoughts about specifically the time travel mechanics, something I really appreciated other than the seeming continuity error with Cap, is that they managed to subvert a really big potential issue here where anyone that went in expecting time travel, we were expecting Back to the Future time travel, and that was going to be a problem because that means time travel can be the answer to fucking anything.
Yeah.
But since they set up these rules where no, you can't actually affect the present or the future, that means time travel was strictly a means to get to the Infinity Stones. They can't actually fix things that way.
Right.
And it's brilliant because it means time travel doesn't get to ruin this universe. It means I don't get to spend every movie going, well, why not just go back in time? Well, because that won't actually fix most problems.
Yeah, I was super happy that they did it that way too, because it kind of feels like time travel is like a last ditch effort to keep people interested in a show or a franchise.
Like if Star Wars goes there, they're ruined.
Yeah.
I like that they specifically said Back to the Future is bullshit to kind of disallow all that sort of continuity.
Oh goodness!
It
Yeah,
just,
I loved when they did that.
it felt like some really graceful foresight, not just for the reason of it prevents future movies from all having that problem. Why not just time travel? But also because, with the exception of where they seem to have screwed it up with Cap, it prevents me from worrying about continuity issues all over the place, because you don't, for example, get to send Cap back in time to whoop Cap's ass and then come back to the present and tell me that didn't change anything.
Right.
You especially don't get to pull Thanos and Gamora out of the past, never send them back, and pretend that didn't change everything in completely incomprehensible ways.
Right. I mean, it did, but it did it in another universe that we're never going to see.
Right. And you know what? It is kind of disturbing, though, if that's right, that those alternate timelines remain and they don't go away when the stones go back. If that's correct, it is a little disturbing that the Avengers don't care what they did to those timelines.
Well, yeah, there are some implications there, and I actually thought that same thing about if Captain America goes back in time and never comes back, then he's probably creating a timeline where there is no Captain America, and what happens to the Avengers and everything else that happens in that timeline.
Yeah, he wasn't in that, in that alternate timeline he lived in. There's no Captain America, and then what?
Right, yeah.
Whatever terrible things happened to that timeline, he seems to have bothered to to live through the results and not do anything about it.
Yeah, because that shield he gives to Sam is in pristine condition. It had not been used.
And never touched it again.
So there's a little bit of glossing over the details there that you kind of have to be willing to look past it, I think.
Yeah.
But all in all, for a movie that was as based around time travel as it was, I was very impressed with how they were able to pull it off and make it not bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I guess we can get to more minor characters here.
I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I haven't seen any of the Ant-Man movies.
Oh, dude.
And I haven't seen Doctor Strange.
Oh.
My wife did explain to me how he did get stuck in the quantum
realm
physics thing? The quantum realm, thank you. So she did explain to me how that happened, like, while watching the movie. So, I mean, not like I'm not going to go back and watch those movies. I genuinely hadn't had time to before I got the chance to see Endgame.
So I'm assuming that puts you in a position where, again, you probably understood what those characters were doing just fine. Yeah. It's just you get a slightly smaller level of appreciation without the backstory. But it still makes sense.
Yeah. Right.
For the record, Doctor Strange became a way cooler character in the Avengers movies than he was in his own.
Oh, really?
Because his own movie's an origin story, and at that point, he's not the greatest sorcerer that ever lived. And then Infinity War happens, and he is the greatest sorcerer to ever live, and everyone's like, whoa, what the hell happened to this character? He's so cool now.
Okay, I see.
I think the implication there is that he was messing with the time stone the whole time to basically like hyperbolic time chamber himself into becoming the greatest sorcerer ever.
Exactly.
Yeah, so in other words,
so during the Doctor Strange film, he's using astral projection to practice in his sleep. Mm-hmm. And like that's kind of how he gets his head start, and also has like a photographic memory, and he's just in general one of the smartest people on the planet. And then it seems like after the film he just goes, oh, I can hyperbolic time chamber myself forever, and now I'm suddenly the greatest. Deal with it.
I don't know if you're saying that you didn't like the movie Doctor Strange, Dalton, but
I did.
I considered it a top 5 for me before.
I did, but it's somewhere in the middle for me. I was generally happy, but then we did see him in Thor Ragnarok before Infinity War, and even there I was like, oh, I like him more in this movie. I guess I just like getting past the origin stories. I mean,
he's definitely much better once his character's fully realized.
Yeah.
Right.
But I also think that's
Ant-Man
because he
movies-
starts his own movie off as such an unlikable character.
True.
And he has to go through a lot of growth before he becomes really who he is.
Yeah, no, that's true. They introduce him as really unlikable, even more so than Tony Stark is introduced as. And then you watch him. No, I almost said you watch him get humbled throughout, but no, not really, because he pretty quickly starts whooping some sorcerer ass with little practice. So, yeah, I don't know. That movie's somewhere in the middle for me. The Ant-Man movies are like a fun diversion where the appeal is that they're smaller stakes, pun not intended. Well, I guess it's intended because I said it. I could have not said it, and then I did. They're just fun little diversions from, like, you know, you get out of Infinity War, this huge, you know, this event that matters on a universe-wide scale, and then let's watch Ant-Man have a heist.
Right.
That's
if you get a little bit fatigued of the entire universe being at stake in every Marvel movie, that's where Ant-Man comes in.
Okay. Oh, dude, I just remembered I didn't see Captain Marvel either.
I also haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, and I was okay with that because she didn't really play. I mean, the parts she played in the movie were very big, but she wasn't in the movie for all that long, so I feel like I had enough context to kind of understand her, even though I haven't watched her movie yet.
Right. Very little, but also she shot Infinity War. She shot Endgame before her movie.
Really?
And so her portrayal is not really nailed down yet, guys. Like I talked about Captain Marvel on here, and I said I wasn't really sold yet. I see potential for it to get better, but it was really underwhelming for me, and I didn't know how much of it was her and how much of it was the writing or directors. I still kind of feel like it was the directors, but we saw her here under the work of much better directors, and I still didn't like her in this movie, but I still have to give the benefit of a doubt that, well, they just threw her in here with little explanation of who her character is, and maybe she did the best with, you know, what she got, but without seeing the script to her own movie, you know, how does she figure out who her character is supposed to be, you know, 20 years in the future?
Right.
She doesn't even know who she is in her origin at that point. Now she has to act who she is 20 years later. And so I still don't like her, but I also still don't know if it's Brie Larson's fault or not.
I don't necessarily think that she's going to be at fault here.
I don't know, because I've seen her under two different sets of directors and writers now, and I didn't like her under either. But
now it's really hard for me to say because I've seen maybe 5 minutes total of screen time of that character so far, and the only really thing I had to do was wonder how she was able to haul a ship 10,000 light years in under 24 hours before Tony Stark died of oxygen.
Now I am relieved that they let her be a badass without letting her save the day, because I would have been pretty upset if they introduced her in movie 21 of a 22 movie arc and said, you get to save the day.
Right. Yeah, that would have been really frustrating.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, so I do think they used her just the right amount. They illustrated how OP she is without leaving it all up to her. And it did lead to that shot of all the women heroes together, which, you know what, to be honest, I'm conflicted on. I'm conflicted on because I appreciate I appreciate having all these female heroes, and I actually wish there were more, and I wish there were enough of them that it wasn't noteworthy to us when there's a bunch of them on screen at the same time. And I get that they're proud of it and that's cool and everything, but I guess I have a very slight issue with it in that just like in Infinity War, it didn't feel natural. Like, that's a really ridiculous coincidence, right? I don't remember how many female heroes were in that shot. It has to be like 10 of them. Why coincidentally were they all standing right next to each other at that moment?
Well, I mean, two of them would kind of make sense immediately with Black Panther's sister and the guard. I cannot remember their names for the life of me.
But so this shot was about Captain Marvel, and then suddenly, coincidentally, all the other women were right there.
Right.
Why did they just happen to be right there? All of the women.
I don't mind that.
So, I mean, the shot feels good, but
yeah,
I've debated, like, it's definitely forced to some extent. Is it too forced for me? It's forced enough that it pulled me out for a second, but I'm also not someone who's upset that they care about having female heroes.
So here's
Yeah.
my take on this. Here's my take on this. Superhero movies since the dawn of time have been based on contrived moments that happen just because they're cool. Like I think that the coincidence that all of the superpowered women of the entire franchise were in a scene together, that happened because it was cool. And sure, you can look at that and say, yeah, that's kind of ham-fisted or whatever word you want to use to say like it took you out of the moment. But really what it was it was just fucking cool. I think it's really cool, and especially when I was talking earlier this show about how criminally underutilized Black Widow was as a character for her entire run throughout the franchise. It's really cool that there are so many high-powered female characters in this franchise, and it's kind of a token girl power moment, but who cares? There are tons of really contrived, ham-fisted moments that happen with all of the male superheroes. There's one of them every movie.
Okay.
And nobody bats an eye.
Yeah.
You've sold me. This is a universe built on coincidences, so
It's a superhero movie.
But also, there was a thing that happened while watching it that kind of lowered my concern, where the moment I realized what was happening, I kind of groaned to myself for like a second. But then I heard someone in the audience yell girl power, and then my wife and our friend Emily, both sitting next to me, they both cheered, and then I went, you know what, fine then. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. It's just not it's just not for you.
That. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I will say Captain Marvel, for as many complaints as I have, had a similar had a moment with another cool, like, this is a cool girl power thing that did feel more natural. That wasn't built on weird coincidences, but it was something that I can tell, oh, this is a moment that's really supposed to speak to, young girls that need a hero to look up to. And it felt a little better there. But you're right. This universe is all about coincidences. So I'm not going to nitpick why were all the females right next to each other. It's because then I have to nitpick. Doctor Strange said he looked at what was it, 14 or 16 million futures, and I
think it was 14 million.
That's a pretty ridiculous coincidence.
It's no more coincidental than our boy Ratman, the greatest Avenger.
Ratatouille.
Well, a rat was going to crawl on that button eventually, but it did crawl on it with good timing.
Oh, goodness.
Pretty coincidental timing. Okay, we talked to Captain Marvel. We can talk about the Guardians all as one. They didn't really do much with them.
No, Raccoon was really the star.
I counted one I Am Groot in the entire movie.
Right?
And it was right at the end.
And then you had Ratchet Build-A-Bear.
So it is a little silly to... I guess they did set up Thor joining the Guardians, and they did set up that past Gamora seems to be a focus point for the next movies. So I guess they did start building threads for the next one. But outside of Nebula, who's not really a Guardian, it is a little weird that we're in a Thanos movie and they weren't a little more important. I mean, I guess Rocket, by nature of being the only one who wasn't dusted, but my point isn't that this is a problem. There's so much for them to deal with. My point is just that there's not much to say about them.
Yeah, although I will say that the scene where Rhodey and Nebula are watching Quill for the intro scene to Guardians of the Galaxy 1, but they're watching him sing along to his song without the music playing in the background was probably the funniest scene in the entire movie for me.
It was like those music videos without music YouTube videos.
I love
it was just
those.
like those.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. How about the point when Gamora kicked him in the nuts twice, but she missed the first time and then got both of them the second time?
That was
got
great,
me pretty good.
but less great in hindsight because she completely disappeared from the movie after that scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's hinted that wherever she went, Star-Lord's going to be looking for her now. So I guess we're looking forward to Asgardians Volume 3, The Search for Gamora.
Asgardians. Damn it.
Asgardians of the Galaxy. That is a
You
comic
actually
book.
took me off guard with that. I know, but you took me off guard with it.
I almost said it out
didn't
loud
know.
right before the movie did, and then they said it, and I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
I was going to say it.
It's like, darn it, I'm not that clever.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. Nothing to say
Which
about
will make it really
Spider-Man
interesting
except
because, well, hang on. It'll make it really interesting because Thor speaks Groot.
he does.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, so we might actually have a different interpretation of what Groot says from Rocket Raccoon.
I hope he literally speaks it like Thor says, I am Groot in different inflections.
I hope.
Not just that he understands it and speaks back in English.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Well, I think
I'd
it's
say-
because Thor is a god. He has something called Allspeak that allows him to. He's not even. I think canonically he's not even speaking in English when he's talking to the Avengers. They just perceive whatever he says in their native tongue.
So it's questionable because in the comics, it's definitely all speak. And then I don't think they ever mention that in the movies. And then when he mentions speaking Groot's language, we can't tell for sure if it was a joke or not because he says he learned it in school.
He said it was an elective
Yeah.
class. I'm fairly certain that was a joke, and it was just I'm a god and I can speak every language.
I don't know because Thor says a lot of funny shit, but
Yeah.
he doesn't usually know he's saying something funny. He doesn't normally crack jokes. He just happens to be funny.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
So
who
on that
knows? Maybe
grounds, I
there's
actually
a
don't know.
point of clarification somewhere.
I'm all right with it either way. I guess every other character left just like has a moment or two. Like there's not really anything to say about Spider-Man other than he had a cool moment, or Wanda, except she had a cool moment.
Actually, I do want to talk about Spider-Man a little bit.
I do
Okay.
too.
Because I want to talk about the logistics of Spider-Man Peter Parker going back to high school after being unpersoned for 5 years, and like presumably half of his classmates were snapped and half of them weren't and are now 5 years older than he is. And that's
Yeah,
really
so there's
weird.
Something really clever and something really not clever happening here, where when Homecoming was announced, it was said that they wanted him to have a trilogy of movies in high school. And everyone accepted that as truth. And I'm sitting here confused because these movies take place in approximately real time. So how the hell? Like, his third movie would have to come out at least 4 years after the first one. And he's not in middle school when the series starts. So how is that possible? And so we're still in time skip territory after this movie. We are now ahead of the real world.
Yes.
And regardless of that, we have a good excuse for why Peter is still going to be in high school for 3 movies.
Yeah.
Because we got to move through 5 years of real time without progressing him through school. So that's clever. What's not clever is the fact that all of the named classmates that we get to know in Homecoming, they're all in Far From Home, seemingly the same age in his class. So
So
again,
they
with the
coincidentally have to
coincidences-
have all been snapped.
Yes.
Right.
Coincidentally, everyone he knows in that school got snapped.
Which, yet again, we are basing this off of everything being coincidental.
And that is just a massive coincidence.
So I mean, the logic there would have to check out if we're gonna leave it all to just coincidence, no matter what.
I actually think it would be really cool if Spider-Man goes back to school or in Far From Home, and suddenly, Mary Jane's 5 years older than him.
Ooh.
And what effect does that have? Obviously, on the way they interact with each other.
Which I know I'm ruining the trailers you don't watch, but no, they did not take that angle.
I know they didn't do that, but I wish they had. I think it would have been a really ambitious way to go about it.
Well, so with that said, I am incredibly relieved that, speaking of what they've done with time travel and what we expected this movie to be, it was pretty common knowledge that there was going to be a 5-year time skip. It was not common knowledge that we were going to leave that intact. We all kind of thought they're going to turn back time And then Far From Home is going to take place right after Infinity War. And we thought we were going to move on. Like, pretty much none of it happened. Like, characters that were killed off for realsies will stay killed off, but I expected that most people wouldn't remember it ever happened and that we would not stay 5 years in the future. But they did. They put real stakes in this world. And
Yeah.
I'll be really impressed if they manage to keep acknowledging that in the future. Like, we saw that, you know, Scott's whole neighborhood got ruined and foreclosed on and turned into a, you know, just this deserted area. Snapping these people back into existence is going to do the same thing. It's going to wreck your economy all over again. And those are real stakes that, I mean, we'll see if they handle it or not. But I hope they at least acknowledge that half of the people on the planet experienced dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do wonder how they're going to address that in future movies. And I guess we don't have to wait very long for Far From Home to come out.
Yeah, at least for Spider-Man's results. Can we talk how weird it is that they're calling Far From Home the end of Phase 3?
Are they?
Really?
Officially.
Okay, no, that is very weird.
Just like strangely, the end of Phase 2 was not Age of Ultron. It was officially Ant-Man.
Really?
Which I almost accepted there because it means Civil War starts off Phase 3, and that's cool. But this is just weird.
And, you know, I thought about this for a minute too, by the way, about Spider-Man Far From Home. They kind of spoiled Endgame because there's no Robert Downey Jr. in that trailer.
I don't think anyone... That's only interesting.
I'm making a
because
joke,
Happy's
damn it.
There. It is interesting because Happy's there, but I didn't think about it. People weren't expecting that
And
Tony...
Nick Fury.
People weren't expecting that Tony had to be in every Spider-Man movie because I think it was said out front when this whole deal was announced that there would be someone from the MCU movies featuring in every Spider-Man solo movie. The assumption being that it would be a different one every time. Interesting that they went with Nick Fury and not like Doctor Strange, but okay.
Yeah.
But so it wasn't weird that Tony's
Deadpool.
not in all three because we were expecting someone else to be there. But now that you mention it, Happy's there and Tony's not. So yeah, that is kind of a giveaway.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I didn't know, like, I didn't have any theories going into this movie, but like the moment when Doctor Strange and Tony meet eyes and Doctor Strange just points his finger up is when I realized, shit, Tony has to die.
Well, he's not pointing his finger up. He's holding up the number 1.
Yeah.
He's saying this is the one.
Oh.
This is the one timeline. This is like know what you have to do in the one way that we win.
And it was beautiful.
I guess that makes so much more sense.
And it was beautiful. And okay, the dialogue that's happening as he sacrifices himself.
Yes.
I am inevitable. I am. And he said that so slow, and I felt like an idiot for not figuring out what he was going to say before he said it. I was sitting there. I almost screamed, "You are what?" Iron Man.
Yeah.
Oh, it felt so good.
I loved that.
It was perfect.
It was so good.
Probably
I have
the
to
best
ask-
last words I've ever heard. And you know that friend I mentioned who only saw Infinity War before this does not, presumably doesn't appreciate how good that was.
Right. Now, the roles being reversed here with Spider-Man being dusted in Infinity War, and in this case, Tony dying in Endgame. Do you think that Tom Hiddleston also improv'd this scene?
Are you getting some
Do you mean
names
Tom
backwards?
Holland?
Or yeah, Tom Holland. Did I say Hiddleston?
Loki
Yeah.
was there the
Yeah,
whole
you did.
time. I missed
Sorry.
it.
Yeah. Loki used the Tesseract to go into the actual reality, and he played Tony Stark dying. No. Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
I do remember hearing
been
something
at this for an
about
hour
the
and a half.
behind the scenes about the making of the movie is that they just wouldn't. They would not give Tom Holland the script ahead of time because they were convinced that he would spoil the movie to everyone. So he wasn't allowed to know
Yeah.
what happened in every scene until he was filming it.
Well, at the
Yeah,
same
but, like-
time, though, the majority of the cast has said they never saw a script. And when they say things like that about Tom Holland, I have to wonder how much of it is legit and how much of it is he genuinely slipped once or twice and we thought that was hilarious, so they started using it as a marketing thing.
Oh, I'm sure that plays into it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not really, like, I heard that too, but it's not really unique to him that he didn't get a script. I think on one of the talk shows, they said only one of them, I want to say Chris Evans, I could be wrong, but they said only one of them read the whole script.
Really?
Yeah. In Infinity War, though, I think a lot of the characters that died, the actors actually didn't know.
Oh.
Because, like, Peter's the only one, well, okay, there's a couple others, but Peter's the only one that, like, says a lot as he's dying. And everyone else goes kind of instantly, like in the middle of a sentence or in the middle of walking. And so I think it's the case that a lot of them didn't actually know they got dusted there.
I think Black Panther said something.
Yeah.
Well, he finished that line of dialogue beforehand, though. And it wasn't a line that implied he was dying.
It wasn't as drawn out either.
He was, if I recall, he was like rescuing someone else and said, "This is no place to die." And then he...
Yeah, I think he was talking to Okoye.
Yeah. So there's nothing there that implied he knew.
Maybe.
In any case, I know Tom Holland improvised his death in that movie. I don't know if... I guess we'll find out.
I don't know if he improvised.
I guess we'll find out what was improvised here.
Right, yeah.
Guys, I cried so much.
Yeah.
Not even just at the ending,
movie,
through a lot of the movie.
There was a lot that I almost was in tears for, too. But
I was almost crying early on when Tony was mad at Cap. Just that he got back to Earth and he was rescued, and he was furious, and in a way, the Avengers were still not together. The villain from Civil War won so goddamn hard, the Avengers were still not together until the end of Endgame.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't even gonna lie, man. Like, as soon as, you know, right when Cap got the hammer, and then at that point, I was just happy.
I had happy tears at that point. And then Avengers Assemble.
It was like happy cry feel, you know what I mean? And then, yeah, exactly. Avengers Assemble is right where I was going. I almost lost my shit, dude.
I knew they had to say it at some point
because I was like,
I do have to nitpick that line, though. As good as it felt in the moment, and it always will feel good, but they were already assembled.
They were already assembled by the time he said that.
Technically, he should have said Avengers charge.
But you know what? It was still so cool.
Yeah. It was. This movie is so good, and I'd love to see it again in theaters before it goes out.
Yeah. Man, I think we're about done, guys.
Yeah. Seriously, if you watched, or sorry, not watched, if you listened to this podcast without...
Okay, don't literally cut it off there if you were about to go to sponsorship. Because I said before we started that I was going to feel like a jerk if I didn't mention the writers, because everyone mentions directors. And so I want to make a habit of fixing that. And so my thanks not only to the Russo bros, but to Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, who I believe have written all the Marvel movies that the Russos have worked on, and Thor: The Dark World, but we don't have to talk about that. I forgive you guys for that one.
But what I was gonna say was, if you guys listened to this episode of Yet Another Geek Show, I'm gonna be a little pissed at you if you didn't watch the movie first.
Hey, we gave everyone 3 minutes to go watch the movie.
Exactly.
I would feel pretty great if someone started this episode and decided by the end of our non-spoiler part that it was so good that they just had to finish it right now before seeing the movie.
I'll forgive them.
I'd feel great about that.
That wouldn't be too mad about it. So where do you think Marvel goes from here?
Ooh.
What's the next big arc going to center around?
Because I've already said, you know, this feels like the perfect place to end, but I also don't want to say actually end because so many characters have one movie.
Before we even go there, at the end credits, there was no scene, but there was a noise.
Okay, so I recognized what the noise was. You guys?
I did not, but the internet told me what it was this morning.
So, Josh, you want to give the reveal?
Yeah, it was the sound of Tony Stark hammering out his his first Iron Man suit from the very first movie.
Yeah. It was just the sound of Tony Stark. That's how he talks, man.
He talked like ching. I recognized the sound distinctly because in that scene in Iron Man, they quite humorously synchronized the sound to the music, like perfectly on beat. And I always found that really memorable and attention grabbing. So
Yeah.
the meaning of that
absolutely.
sound definitely stood out to me. Fantastic choice that they decided not to tease what was coming in the future. And,
Yes.
And officially, they haven't actually revealed any movies after Far From Home. I mean, we still know a lot of what's coming just because,
Oh, yeah.
like, you know, there's insider talks that get out and like we know that they've hired a director to do Shang-Chi, and we know there's a director and some new actors hired for Black Widow. And so that information gets out. But officially, they have not yet come out and said, this is the lineup. There's a lot of it we can guess, but they haven't come out and said it. And I think they feel like it was a mistake that they announced the entire Phase 3 before Phase 3 started. And I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like that I've known this movie was coming for something like 6 years now. I don't want to have to keep waiting like that. So kudos on that decision and on choosing this movie of all of them to not have an end credit. That said, from here, if they want to keep doing team ups, and I think they got to just knock it off for a little while. But having the Fox properties back gives them a lot to work with.
I did want to talk about this.
So
Because
I guess that's
getting
where
the
you go
Fantastic
from here.
Four is kind of whatever, but it does mean that they get Doctor Doom.
Yeah, and you know what? Don't use him for Fantastic Four. Use him for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can pull a Loki in the first Thor and Avengers and introduce him as a smaller deal for Fantastic Four, and then still make him the big bad for a big team up.
Yeah.
Magneto's dangerous enough to make him an enemy for everyone. And then going back to the cosmic scale, which again, maybe they ought to knock it off for a while, but there's things like Galactus now.
Right. There's a lot of stuff in play. I definitely don't think they should immediately raise the stakes that high again, because we'll all just get worn out from that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They could do Secret Wars, which is like a Skrull invasion, these shape-shifting aliens from Captain Marvel.
I think that rings a bell really hard with me.
I feel like those characters got wasted in Captain Marvel, but I can't imagine introducing the Skrulls and not making them a bigger deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of those. I think you introduce the X-Men a couple at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the Avengers approach did really, like, it did a wonder for it. So if they're going to do, more X-Men, I think they should do it singularly instead of building them as a team first.
Yeah, I mean,
So if
I
they
get that
introduce Magneto into the MCU, do you think that he's still Wanda's dad? Or do they change that aspect of her character?
Okay, here's my approach. Because you have to...
Actually, he
explain
can't be,
mutants.
because in their backstory, their parents died.
Yes and no. I have an answer to this. So you have to explain in general the sudden appearance of mutants that have somehow gone unnoticed for this long. And I don't remember what story arc this is a part of. I want to say House of M. I'm not super familiar with X-Men in the comics. But there's like a big event where Wanda, in a big powerful rage, declares no more mutants. And I believe the results of that were future mutants stopped being born, and current mutants, I think some of them lost their powers completely and some of them ended up with drastically weakened powers. And I think what you do here is you put her in a Doctor Strange sequel and you have Doctor Strange show her other dimensions, and you don't pull anything in from another dimension, but you imply that she has already declared no more mutants, and you get her to undo it. So in this universe's version of events, her declaring no more mutants made the world forget about them and even changed the origins of her own powers. Have her learn about that through Doctor Strange and then undo it.
Huh.
And with that, I
That's
think
an
you can make
interesting approach.
Magneto her father.
That's really interesting. I wonder if they'll do that.
Yeah. Speaking of Scarlet Witch, we didn't really talk about her and how awesome it was in her fight scene.
Unfortunately, it was really the only screen time she got in the movie, which kind of
Yeah.
sucks because Scarlet Witch has been one of my favorite characters in the franchise
awesome.
since the moment
Yeah.
she first came on screen. But watching her, I mean, it took an entire starship to get her off of Thanos' back. She was probably the most dangerous character to Thanos.
She
Arguably
made
on the
words,
same tier as
"You
Captain
will."
Marvel.
She made the words "you will" one of the scariest sentences I've ever heard.
Right.
That was chills.
Oh, man.
But it was,
just
her
a major
her
can
only
of whoop
moment
ass.
because most of the dusted characters had one moment, and that's fine because there were probably
Yeah.
60 heroes in that scene. So what are you going to do?
Right.
I'm thrilled that she's getting her own Disney Plus series with Vision. I hate that the official title is one word, WandaVision.
That is horrible.
That's awful.
So, and I love Vision as well, and I'm glad we have an excuse to see more of both of them, even if that's presumably a prequel. And I wish we could have got more of these, side characters that are getting TV shows now. I wish we could have got more of them before they had to be prequels, but okay, I'll take what I can get. Hawkeyes won't be a prequel, I can at least say that. So
That's true. Yeah.
Any thoughts about music?
Man.
I mean, I think it was pretty much on par for Marvel, which is to say it was really good, but I don't think I recognize it as particularly standing out amongst the franchise. So
There was so much action going on the screen that you don't even notice it half the time.
I do.
There's
I
so
do
much to be
often
involved and
forget to
engaged
think
in.
about music in Marvel movies.
Yeah. Especially one that's this hyped,
Yeah. Although, I mean, I do more so on the second try, but
Yeah.
the Marvel movies that have been composed by Alan Silvestri, which, if I recall correctly, are, you know what, I'm just going to look up the list before I get it wrong. I know he did these two Avengers movies. I think the first Avengers movie, and I think Captain America's first movie. If he did any others, I don't recall, but I know for sure he did those four. Alan Silvestri's stand out above everyone else's. And he's kind of the only person who's written themes that keep getting reused by other composers. Like,
Right.
maybe he's the only one reusing the theme he wrote for Caps. I'm not sure. But that Avengers theme keeps showing up, and they use it in like the Guardians movies a lot. And I actually think his contributions are incredible. And this is about the universe more than Endgame, but I hear the criticism a lot that Marvel's music is nothing special, and people use the reasoning that it's not very memorable. They say, well, I can't, recite a character's theme off the top of my head. But then the competition they're holding it up against is always John Williams. They'll whistle some Indiana Jones theme or Star Wars theme. And I'm like, first of all, it's different though, because those are movies that, it's because the melodies are really memorable, but it's also because you watched those movies 100 times as a kid. Whereas Marvel, other than the Avengers theme, very rarely does anything with, themes. They don't really reuse melodies. And I don't think that makes the music worse. It just makes it less memorable. Also, there's not so much repetition, and I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but people will say John Williams is the greatest, and he is, but it's a unique thing to him that he writes a theme and then reuses and reinterprets the hell out of it over and over and over again until you've heard it 50 times before the movie's over. And Marvel movies don't do that, and I don't think that makes them worse, just less memorable. That's all I have to say about that. Although I did wish when I like to fan cast composers. People fan cast actors. I like to fan cast composers. And I did say years ago when they announced Infinity War, at the time it was Infinity War Part 1 and 2, I said, man, they should get John Williams.
Yeah, if only.
I assume that would have been better, but I still think it was pretty great anyway. And I hope Alan Silvestri keeps doing stuff for them, even though the Russo bros seem to be done.
All right, you guys, I think we have one last thing that it would be a shame if we didn't touch on before we wrap this up. And that is, I think we got our very last Stan Lee cameo.
Yes.
That is the last one.
I wasn't sure if they had made one for Far From Home, but I think the last cameo being here is more impactful. And while the cameo itself wasn't really anything special, especially compared to some of his other ones, just knowing the fact that it was the last one and it was the first, just knowing that he was gone. I don't know. I got really emotional when he was on screen.
Yeah.
I actually think it would have been, not that they can do anything about it. I think it would have been more fitting for him for his last to be a Spider-Man movie, actually, because he did put the Avengers together, but Spider-Man has always been his baby. It's always been the one that mattered most. That said, Into the Spider-Verse had a really great one, had an outright like tribute at the end as well. And, you know, like you said, this cameo, it's a great place for him to have his last cameo, but, you know, it wasn't one of the greatest. Captain Marvel actually has his greatest cameo. And like in terms of what the cameo actually was, it would have been his best one to go out on. I don't know if you guys would mind me explaining what that was, to explain why that was such an impactful one.
Yeah, go for it.
Man.
So his cameo in Captain Marvel is that he's sitting on a bus as Captain Marvel walks by, and you see him reading something, and he's kind of, if I recall right, he's like reading out loud so you can hear what it is that he's reading, and he's actually reading the script for Mallrats, which was his first. I don't think it's his first cameo, because he might have showed up in like the Incredible Hulk TV series, I think, but maybe his first movie cameo was Kevin Smith's Mallrats. And that would have been a great place for him to go out, is reading the script for like a role that Stan Lee actually played. It's a cameo, one of his latest cameos, acknowledging one of his earliest cameos.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That is super cool.
I don't know how many people watching it actually understood what was happening, but
I would not have gotten that reference had I watched the movie, so I'm glad that you were here to explain it to me.
Yeah.
yeah. That said, it's a shame he didn't get to see this movie.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a downer note to go down on, but I guess I'll just, say what a billion people have said, which is that Stan Lee has done a lot for me, and I, appreciate his contribution to the arts, and and he might be one of the most important artists that ever lived. Honestly, I'm using art in the general arts term, not in a like drawing term, but just
Right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
To expression.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He touched a lot of people, and in a very impactful way.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame to see a legend go like that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is.
Yep. All right. That said, I guess it would be inappropriate for us to jump right back into the movie now. So I guess we'll cut it off there. But first, a sponsorship.
Yes. So, Josh,
Yes.
you like to hear yourself talk and other people talk, correct?
More than anything in the world.
Well, I'll tell you what. You should get yourself a free 30-day trial with Audible on us, where you can get, a free audiobook and 2 Audible originals when you sign up, and you can cancel at any time. You should just check out www.audibletrial.com/YAGS. That is YAGS for yet another geek show.
Yeah.
Well, golly, that sounds swell.
It really does.
I don't have to learn to read anymore.
Me either.
I think you just created our own continuity error, Dalton, because I'm pretty sure this episode's coming out before the one where we explain that joke.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Now you're no
And
better than
Josh,
Captain America.
To be fair, the joke was that for years it was that I
explain
couldn't
No, don't
drink.
explain the joke.
What are you doing?
No.
Get off my
No.
podcast.
This is pre you, Josh. Listen.
We have to travel back in time and remove Alex from this podcast.
I don't know. Anyways.
This has been yet another Geek Show spotlight on Avengers Endgame. And if you guys just listened to this long ass podcast, thank you for doing so. And hopefully we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Yeet.